When you start any sort of journey, just understand your threshold for discomfort because I think it's easy to get into a comparison game with yourself and other people, and you need to have the right habits in place. So, if you have a poor man's level of habits in whatever you do now, like you jumping into anything else is not necessarily going to translate into success just because you think you're better than somebody else or you think because somebody else is doing it, you can do it. So just make sure you have the right habits in place because if you have the habits in place, things will fall into place.
This is the Fit Investor Podcast, where we talk about how to live a more holistic life of being fit, not only financially, but physically and faithfully. We'll be joined by experts in all these areas to share their experiences and actionable and practical tips so that you can be a fit investor too. So now let's join our hosts, Cale Delaney, Wesley Whitehead, and Brenna Carls.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Fit Investor Podcast. I'm your host, Cale Delaney, here with the formerly bearded man, Mr. Wesley Whitehead. So for those of you who see it on YouTube here, he cut off the famous beard. Still got a small one, but he's a totally different person now.
You got caught in the blender.
And we have Brenna, not the bearded lady, Carls.
Yep.
And today, our special guest is Omid the Rad Investor. So Omid is the co-founder of Alpha Geek Capital. He's a high-performance coach and a podcast host. He helps aspiring real estate investors acquire short-term rentals through partnerships, and he creates a gateway experience consistent with his brand, the Hideaway Haus. His mantra is simple: check your worries at the door and have a great time. This mantra stemmed from Omid's early and evolving influences, where he grew up in a multicultural household that allowed him to thrive in the melting pot of Southern California. He traveled globally, always seeking out the local and off the beaten path experience. He helped grow Alpha Geek Capital's STR portfolio to a 10 plus million portfolio, which includes 20 plus listings in multiple markets. Half of the portfolio includes themed tiny homes and Joshua Tree. And the goal is to have modern luxury amenities where you can disconnect from the world and experience self-care. As a co-host of the Find Your Freedom podcast, Omid interviews entrepreneurs to amplify their abundance mindset to inspire aspiring investors to seek out their dreams. And he's been featured in numerous podcasts, including Bigger Pockets Rookie and now The Fit Investor. So welcome, Omid.
What's up? How you doing today?
Good. Omid,
Yeah.
I and Brenna, we all have known each other for a little while, and we've been in the short-term rental space. And Brenna actually did the first short-term rental loans for each one of us. So there you go. Brenna has been the start of it all. So thank you.
I love about Brenna. She's so cool and calm and her background, dude, the colors are like speaking my language. Like I love your background colors and I know that's consistent with like your branding. So it's super cool. Wesley, of course, like the beard. I used to have a beard much bigger. And then I started doing like some social media things and they're like, hey, that beard is like unkept looking and people don't like it. Actually, that's just what my wife told me. I don't know if she's right or not, but that's what she told me. So I had to trim it down a little bit. I know the feeling. And then Cale, of course, dude, I don't know how you're just like a machine. You're like everywhere, all the forums, and you're so able to maintain the portfolio, keep growing it. And then you have like, those major pecs. Like you had some picture where you posted something where your pecs were showing. And I'm like, man, like this guy must bench like 500 pounds. Like, I don't know if I could ever grow pecs like that. So pretty impressive.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's 495. That's my bench. Almost 500.
Yeah.
Cale's not telling you that they're all implants. So, so when he goes,
it's been exposed. It's been
when he goes
exposed.
to Colombia, he's not down there for the scenery.
There you
He's
go.
down there for the implant.
That's true. That's right. Speaking of Colombia, yeah, I think Kale's like former name was like Land Lover or something like that. And I think that's how I connected where he like posted he's going to Colombia. And I'm like, who's this white guy going to Colombia? Like, what is he doing out there? What's going on? And then we just started just DMing and then Kale's a very giving guy. And so it's just super cool how we've been able to meet in person in conferences as well and virtually as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. We're excited to have you here, man, and share a bit of your story and talk about some of the realities of entrepreneurial life. So why don't we just kick it off? Tell us a little bit about your background, where you are now, and then we can go from there.
Sure. Yeah. I'm going to try to keep it short and brief. So I'm a father of 3 rambunctious children. So they're age 4, 6, and 8, based out of Southern California. I actually worked a corporate job. So I did a very traditional life. I actually was exposed to Rich Dad, Poor Dad very late in life. Late meaning like, how old am I? I'm like 41 now, but it must have been my late 30s. I don't know where I was. Like, I was probably living under a rock or something, but I was working this corporate job. My goal was really move up, make a lot of money, and put as much money into my 401k. And that's what I did. I contributed 25% of my salary into my 401k. So every year I just increased it. And in my mind, that was the way to financial freedom. 16, 18 years later, I think I had like maybe about 600K in my 401k at the time, right when COVID happened. And I thought I was balling. I was like, oh, dude, this is like the best. Like I've invested all my money into this 401k. I'm reducing my taxable income. And then I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I started looking into real estate a little bit. And thanks to Brenna, she funded my first short STRs. I came across the STRs actually right when COVID happened. So that was like the summer of COVID. At the time, everybody was scared to buy. So it was a great time. I made my first offer and it was accepted. So it was like, oh, this is it. This is all you got to do. And started experiencing the cash flow. And then from the power of the cash flow, essentially decided, hey, we're going to try to scale this thing. So I had two partners at the time and we scaled it pretty quickly, grew the portfolio to 20, 25, 25, 26 listings with some still coming. Of course, you run out of money at some point. I think the first five we funded ourselves. And then after that, we started doing partnerships. And that kind of helped us to scale the business. But what I realized is more important than anything was during COVID, I got to spend more time with my family. And so I was always a guy, first one in, last one out. I woke up super early and my priority was go to the gym, be in the office because there's so much traffic. I always wanted to beat the traffic, get in. Then I'm like stuck in traffic again on the way home. So then I'm like working long hours, wait for traffic to die down. Then I drive home. So that was my routine. And then I would say a year and a half ago, I built up enough cash flow where it replaced my income. And I decided, okay, this is time because there was a point where I was waking up at 3:30 a.m. to maintain all my responsibilities. So it was like my original routine was 5, then it became 4:30, then it became 4, then it became 3:30 because I still wanted to do well at work and also maintain my responsibilities with a short-term rental portfolio. And here I am now. So now I'm like a full-time entrepreneur. And the irony is I'm trying to figure out what is the right balance between looking like you. So that's my long-term goal is to look like you. And then while still trying to grow like professionally, grow my business, and then still be able to create quality experiences for my kids.
Yeah. That is the perpetual struggle, right?
Yeah.
And to find that balance. Goodness.
So like Kale, even for you, you balance, you have the portfolio, you got the podcast going on now, you're doing all these extra projects. How do you make time? Because I struggle with that and I'm still trying to figure out what is the best practices. I've always stuck to wake up early and my version of the miracle morning. I guess everybody has their own version probably once they're entrepreneurs, but maybe we can just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. I'll be the first one to admit that my life is not balanced right now. I'm in the same spot as you, my friend, and trying to figure it out. I am, as an entrepreneur now, full-time entrepreneur, same as you. I am definitely working more than I wanted to or expected to and focusing too much on that. So I haven't figured it out. So there are definitely aspects of my life that are being neglected or struggling a bit, but it's all a matter of really same as you. I'm a proponent of getting up early, getting some of those things out of the way, prioritizing, time blocking, and all that type of stuff. So that's how I'm able to do all the things that I'm doing, which you're doing just as much, if not more. I have 3 kids, same as you. So yeah, it's a struggle. And I'm in that same thing of trying to figure out how do I get that balance back? When is enough? When do I need to just sit back and let things get better systemized and optimized and all that thing instead of just trying to keep growing and growing? I'm right with you. So I'm here to learn as well.
I'd like to say what I notice about both of you and people that just are really busy. I keep reiterating that Facebook and social media only shows the positive of people's lives, and it doesn't show the hardships at home behind closed doors, right? It doesn't show those arguments when you come home late from work because you're doing a W-2 job and then working personally, like I would 10:30, 11:30 at night and wake up at 5 a.m. and do it all over again. And you don't have that much time for family. And then you feel guilty. And it's all these things behind your success. And I think what I see from you guys and people like you is just like working out, right? Once you get in the habit of it, it's not, oh, I have to do this. It's just something you do. You wake up and do what you need to do, and it becomes habit. And that's what you're used to. And you do see success with working hard. I don't think you have to be a genius. I'm not saying y'all aren't geniuses. Maybe you are. I'm not saying it, but you don't have to be a genius. You have to have, I've always said, I think you have to have a little common sense and really hard work ethic to succeed. And I think I see that in both of you guys. So, Omid, nice try on putting everything back on Kale, but let's go back. Let's go back to you and what you do in your version of your miracle morning.
Sure. Yeah. So it'll vary. I pretty much wake up without the alarm. So I have an alarm set at 4 o'clock. So usually I'll wake up anywhere between 3:30 to 4. So that's my typical routine. I know some people talk about gratitude. I try to mentally do the gratitude in my mind while I'm doing my coffee in the morning. So it's normally I wake up. I know it's best practices. A lot of gurus say, don't check your phone, don't check your emails. But I do that. I can't not do that. So I'll check any pressing emails or anything that's a priority that maybe happened overnight. So I'll do that. Everything's clear. Then I'll go downstairs. I'll make my coffee right before my gym. So I do Orange Theory. Some people do like your traditional lifting or CrossFits. I like Orange Theory because I play soccer. So I want to stay lean and agile. And so that type of exercise, which is high interval, a little bit less weights, but it allows me to stay lean for the purpose of soccer. So I have a class 5 to 6. I'll go typically 4 to 6 days a week, depending on the week. And if there's a really heavy work day, then I may skip it. But I've really made the physical piece the foundation for everything, because I think if I physically feel well, I can service others. And that's really including my kids. I come across a lot of parents who are in their 40s. And what's interesting is their energy levels are very low. So they barely have enough energy to wake up, get the kids ready, go to work, come back, pick the kids, take them to an activity, and they're exhausted. They don't want to do anything more. They just want to check out. So I think that I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think that's like the average person that I talk to. That's what I hear. So for me, I want to be able to maintain the energy levels first. So back to what I was saying is foundationally first is being in shape. Kale, he's like been working out since he was like 5 years old or something. To have that kind of build, you probably have to be working out since you were like really young. But so that's a foundational piece. And then that allows me to have my me time, because I think a lot of self-care, when you think about being an entrepreneur or a high performance person, self-care sometimes is overlooked or not. There's not a priority for it. Or me time, there's no priority because every minute of the day is taken, especially if you're a parent. And so that's my version of self-care is I go to the gym. I don't talk to anybody. I try to not, like, I'm a social person, but I don't want to make friends. I don't want to get in, get out, really get what I want out of it, which is kill myself in the gym, feel really good afterwards for the 10 minutes. And then, all right, the day begins, because now I got to wake up the kids, and emotionally I got to be prepared because somebody's going to throw a fit. Somebody's not going to listen. And that was this morning. That was literally this morning. I apologize for being a little late to the podcast, but it's literally like all three of them were being very difficult this morning, and they don't want to get dressed. One has a special request. One refuses to eat breakfast because they don't like what's being served for breakfast. So it's just a kind of combination of those things to be mentally prepared. But I think my highest level of energy is right after the gym, right in the morning, and then just starting the day. So they get dropped off. I get to kind of, as I'm dropping them off, I'm driving, and a lot of times during driving, you get to think out your day. So that's my time to think out, okay, what is my day going to look like? And what are the things I need to do to feel that I've been successful in some of the things that I'm trying to achieve? So I know from a best practice standpoint, a lot of people will do the night before thing where it's, okay, the night before I'm going to do these 3 things. And that's a successful day for me. For me, I'm doing it as I go, which I know it is not the best practice, but that allows me to map out the remainder of the day. And then I'll work on those things. And eventually I'll go through my day of different items and then get the kids. Now we got to restart with the kids. And you think about, okay, their activities. I plan it in my head that they're going to have an activity at least every day there's an activity, whether or not there is one. That's just what I plan for. So that way I'm mentally prepared that, okay, at the end of the day, I still have to have energy to then do that. I do the coaching with my son, basketball, and seasonally, whatever the sports are. So basketball, soccer, t-ball. And yeah, yesterday just came back from practice and get home and get back to the routine of getting them prepared for the next day. So it's a beast to get them down. And then I have a little bit of me time to work a little bit. And I think this is where entrepreneurs, there's a variance. Some will have a tolerance where they'll work 1 hour, 2 hours. Some will work through the night, through midnight. And I think that's where I cut it off. So I'll say a max of 2 hours and that's it. Because again, the sleep part. So I know sleep is so important. And I know a lot of times that gets pushed to the side if people aren't prioritizing it. So what do you do? And as an entrepreneur, as you have priorities, how much time is enough time for sleep? Because I'm going to wake up at 4 no matter what, no matter what happened in the previous day. So what do you do? And I think that's a decision. And maybe what are your guys' thoughts on that as far as like the sleep piece? Because I think that's a challenging one.
Yeah.
I'm big on if I don't get enough sleep, I'll be cranky, and I can act like I'm not cranky, but in my head, I just want to go punch something. But whoever created time blocking, I feel they must have not had anything in their life going on, because it's okay. These 2 hours, I'm going to do this. And then and when I first started a mortgage, you're like, oh, just time block. I'm like, oh yeah, because there's nothing else that comes up. There's not like this file that's on fire. There's not my new puppy just use the bathroom on the carpet in the middle of Zoom. And I don't even have kids, and I can't even time block. So it's, I don't know how anybody does it, especially with kids, especially how busy you guys are. So I do like that you said I take it day by day and I have the goals and I do what I can, because I do think that's true success. Because if people try to time block and then they're so like, I've got to get this done in that day, and they don't, then they feel like they failed or something. And they're like, this is just too much. I can't do it. I don't know how you guys do it. And it's like, you can't take yourself too seriously.
And I think that's a good point, actually, is I think the time blocking is a great concept. I think it works great if you're single and you own your day. But when you have other people in your life who are dependent upon you, who need you, who have their own personal fires to put out, time blocking is still a good goal. But if you can't meet it, like you were saying, Omid, if you can't make it with it, at least you could feel like, okay, I'm not a failure. Like I didn't fail. Like life happened.
Hey guys, it's Brenna Carl, CEO and co-founder of The Mortgage Shop. When I'm not spending my time searching for the best pizza in town, working out because of pizza, or fighting sharks, as Kale likes to say, I spend my time educating clients on the best investment products that will help them build generational wealth and making sure their loan process is as smooth as warm butter on a piece of toast. Call us today to get started with your investment journey at 800-816-7982 or talk more about pizza. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, I agree. And someone who has 5 kids, like I can block like 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'm like, I can't even fathom that.
I go to the bathroom and there's 3 kids at the door.
Man. Yeah, I got the fingers under the door.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my little one's outside the door right now saying, Daddy, open door, open door.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Well, and tell him he's violating your time block.
I know.
Yeah. You cannot come in this room during these 2 hours.
Yeah.
So what time do you go to bed?
Yeah. So that's like Brenna, anywhere from 8:30 to 10:30. So these are the few things that I've done more recently, which is like the notification of turn down on the phone. So like when somebody's messaging me, because sometimes you can't ever turn that off. People are messaging you, calling you at random times, especially as an entrepreneur. And I've gone to a lot of, fights, disagreements with my wife over being present. And, what we've agreed upon, again, it's not perfect. It's between 6 to 8 o'clock. The phone so I've set my phone where at 5 o'clock, the notification says I'm not available, but like 6 to 8 is family time. And once the kids are down, let's say 8:30, okay, that's your time again. You can do whatever you want. But that 6 to 8, of course, messages come in. Sometimes there's meetups, sometimes there's virtual things. So that's the part that I struggle with is I try to say no more to things in that time bucket. Of course, it's not a perfect, but I try to be more mindful of it. And that's something that I'm trying to manage through myself is because literally I'm glued to my phone and then my wife complains, hey, why is your phone ringing all the time? Why do you have all these notifications on? Turn off all your notifications. And so I struggle with that because I have FOMO. I have in my corporate job, speed was so important. And especially in the real estate business, like speed is important, being present, being in the know. And so how can you balance those things? And I think, Kale, you do an amazing job as far as being present into all these different like forums and being a contributor. Like you're an amazing contributor. I think that's why so many people know you in the community. And I struggle with that because I like to do more, but I'm like, okay, within my priorities, like that's a little bit lower where I'm like, okay, if I have time, I want to do some of those things more like you. I think you're a great model for that as far as being very giving to the community.
Yeah, I thank you. I appreciate that. I think you have things a bit better structured than me, honestly. And I get a very similar thing in terms of being on the phone too much because short-term rentals, unfortunately, is a bit of a 24/7 thing unless you're starting to outsource and that type of thing, which I'm not at that stage yet. So just coincidentally enough, and just being transparent, since we're talking about all this stuff, right before this podcast started, I was in a disagreement with my wife about the exact same thing. So it's a reality of this business. Unfortunately, there are ways to mitigate that. Like what you just said, Omid, you block off that time from 6 to 8. And I've tried doing that, and I haven't blocked it off in terms of not being on the phone and responding to messages from guests or that type of thing. I blocked it off in terms of like, I'm stopping my work at whether it's 5 or 6 o'clock. And then I'm not going to be in my office for the rest of the day, the rest of the night. After the kids are bed, I'm not going in the office. I'm not doing any more work, but I am still responding to things that come up on the phone or this or that. And so I need to get better with that and probably do something like you do of setting aside a solid time of saying, okay, it goes off for this period. Yeah.
I have a question for you guys. Because I've noticed, Kale, it says like notifications are silenced or whatever. Is that what y'all are talking about? Do you turn something on your phone that's because I'm like not good at technology. So is that in your settings or something? The dumb question, but seriously.
No, that's a great question. No, essentially that is what it is. It's basically, it shows like it silences notifications. So basically you won't get like the ring or during that time. So it'll show like your phone is on like sleep mode. I don't know, sleep, or I don't know, has the little logo on there.
Moon.
Yeah, the little moon, but
Wes is perfect.
Still get the notification, but I may not just
like never answers.
Yeah, so every time I text Wes, I get a little response saying your notification has been silenced. I think he
He's
just
manually texting that to you, by the way.
That's just for Kale.
He's just manually texting that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wes is not here.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. I've talked to I talked to Sarah Weaver. She's the co-author
She's
of
awesome.
the 30-Day Stay book. And so she talked about like life being chapters. So essentially embracing that there's going to be imbalance in your life, and you just got to prioritize and pick whatever it is that you're going to really go all in on, and almost neglect a lot of other things within your life, especially if you're an entrepreneur. And so she's acknowledged, hey, I don't take care of my health. Because I'm building this business, and when I'm okay with that because that's what I decided. That's the decision I made. This next chapter, or she's, oh yeah. And my date life was horrible. Basically I'm not getting laid. But then once the chapter's closed and on a certain thing that I've accomplished, now I'm moving on to the next chapter, and this is the next priority. But for me, I think I try to see if there's never a balance, but I think my two priorities, and I think Jay Papasan and Wendy Papasan, they talked about there's two things that they care about, which is marriage first, family second. So it's always they're the example for their family, and they got to take care of each other, because if they're in sync, then it trickles down for everything else. I'm not there at the marriage part yet, because I think I've talked to high performance coaches, and there's a common theme around high performance people that they coach. And that's usually the priority. What gets pushed to the bottom typically is going to be that relationship with the spouse. So I've been trying to like slowly move it up in terms of the priority list, because I think there is a lot of truth around making being in sync allows you to be more at peace with everything. And so that's what I've been working on. But it's, yeah, foundationally, it's okay, health. And I'm trying to shift wife over kids. I haven't done it yet because it's still like a struggle for me. But to me, it just seems like that appeals to me long term as far as being able to manage everything. And then next being like the business piece. So I'm trying to navigate it and make the adjustments, but again, it's easier said than done.
I think the struggle is, and I know this from several entrepreneurs that I talk to, is you have to figure out what is success to you. Because whatever success is to you, that's what gets your priorities. And so when you find out that like your friend or this lady who's not prioritizing her health, because she doesn't look at that as being successful, that's not success to her. If your wife is the bottom of the barrel, it's because that's not part of your success. And I think it's good having your wife above your children, because ultimately your kids are going to move out one day and have families of their own. You're going to be left with this person who's a stranger. So obviously that's a disaster. But I think a lot of us, we get so focused on growing the business and we'll justify it. Boy, it's providing for my family, it's retirement, it's giving them access to good schools and good vacations and all those things, which are good things by themselves. But if your relationship with your kids and your wife are sacrificed for this business, that can be taken away from you in a heartbeat. You get sick, you get cancer, good luck with your business. Who's left of your family? And I think a lot of times people, they'll chase after that dollar sign. And I'm not opposed to being successful financially, but chase after the dollar sign. And then it's never enough. Your portfolio is never big enough. And then you end up being alone and having a failed relationship. You got 2 or 3 bad relationships. You got step kids and you got out. It's just the whole mess. But on paper, on your tax returns, you're successful. And that's the danger.
You look like the Joneses, basically. I was going to say, because Omid said about his kids being above the wife and he's trying to figure that out. It goes hand in hand. Again, I don't have kids yet, but when you're in a business, those people that interact with you daily, whether it's your employees, your clients, they demand so much from you. And your kids demand so much from you. And kids are like, I have to give them, this is what I'm doing it for. I'm trying to give them a good life. Or the employees, like with me, I've got to make sure they're okay. I need them to make sure that I'm caring for their needs. And then it's exactly right. My husband gets home or something and I'm still working and we don't have that time. But it also went back to him when he was going through pilot school and stuff. He was waking up at 4:30 and then not getting home until 9:30. And it's like we were passing ships. And I think sometimes that's just how life is going to go when you are determined to do something. But at the end of the day, you need to be like, hey, this is my best friend. We both are in it together. Because there's a lot of times that I've had, y'all probably don't, but as a woman, I can have an emotional breakdown. And I don't know if you've ever cried. And then when you look in the mirror, if you see yourself crying, you realize how ugly you look crying. And then you cry more. I'm like, oh, and then I cry. And so maybe that's just girls. I don't know. Or maybe it's just me because sometimes I'm crazy, but it happens. And never like he's like emotional support there. And I've been that for him. And so I think it's not all or nothing. I think it's a give and take. And you have to be cognizant of it.
Quick comment. Sorry, real quick comment. I think what you're saying is correct. I think the problem is that too many times we trick ourselves into saying this is just for a season.
Yeah.
And the season becomes years and then years become decades. That's the challenge.
Yeah.
And so when I talked to Bill Faith about this, so one thing he talked about was how he's able to maintain the relationship with his wife is he has again, go back to time blocking, but every Friday they have a discussion. And so it's scheduled in as far as that they're on the same page as far as their goals, where they are. So everybody knows what their role is, and you don't necessarily have to spend additional time per se, but I think it's more ensuring that there's a communication around what's being done and why, and that everybody's agreeing that this is the method to accomplish the goals. And I think that's where a lot of people fail, including myself. I think before it was like we've had these discussions, it's implied, but not talked about enough, where there's consistent discussions around this. I would fight with my wife. Hey, we talked about this a year ago, 2 years ago, and that's not enough. Like you have to
Mhm.
talk about it very consistently and maintain that level of communication. And I think to me, that sounds like a best practice. And even talking to a high performance coach is also like the time blocking in which we've started implementing more is like the date nights. It's like implementing the date night. A lot of people talk about it, but they don't do it. And it's having the reoccurring weekly, and that's fun, right? And I've noticed when that gives us time to do the reflection discussions and being away from the kids. And if that requires you hiring a babysitter, hire the babysitter because that allows everybody to be in line, everybody to be more at peace. And then you set yourself up for more success.
You have a question about the Orange Theory. So I know you must can like dance, right? You must have a beat because that's those things like you have to be like, I think like you have to be like on beat while you're bicycling. I've done it once and I couldn't sit normal for 4 days, but I feel like you gotta have that rhythm. So you must have pretty good rhythm.
No, it's funny. So I'm not super coordinated. I love dancing, by the way, but I'm not the most coordinated. I know you're a great dancer, right? Yeah.
Who, Kale?
Oh, no, you. Right.
I was
Yeah, yeah,
just
yeah. Right. But Kale he's more of like Magic Mike type dancing. Like
yeah, there you go.
he just got to take his shirt off and just barely move a little bit, and everybody goes wild. Yeah, there you go. But
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I got to have more technique to impress people. Yeah.
there you go. Yeah,
Hey, I was in the University of Miami Salsa Club. Okay.
Really?
so cool.
So there's different, but Omid, I'm pretty sure I've seen a video and you were just goofing around, but you were like doing some kind of dance. I don't know. I feel like maybe I dreamt it, but you
Yeah,
were like
no.
kind of dancing around and you had rhythm. So don't discredit
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, no, I love dancing. So to get a little bit of alcohol in me and I'll dance all night long. So it's fun. I enjoy it. It's just a good time. Yeah, for sure.
It's that Colombian part.
Yeah, yeah. So when I was a kid, I would go to Colombia. So I'd get dropped off every summer as a kid. And it's interesting because when you go out to Colombia, everybody salsas, like it's like one of the capitals of salsa dancing in general. And it's just part of the culture. And my level of rhythm compared to the average person out there is I'm a white boy, right? Like sidestepping, like it just is not the same, right? And over there, everybody just so great at it. They tried to teach me when I was younger and I picked up a little bit, but not nearly to the level that the average person out there goes. And then I think a year ago, I went out for a wedding and I was just so intimidated. I'm like, sometimes I think I'm a great dancer. And then I go to places where I'm like, wow, there's some really great dancers out there. You got to travel the world and there's so many great dancers.
So are you part Colombian?
Yeah, so my mom is Colombian descent and then my dad is from Iran. So they met in an English class in LA. So basically they're both learning the English and they barely spoke English and they spoke the language of love. And shortly after I was born, yeah. So I'm half, yeah, so half Persian, half Colombian, and yeah, raised Southern California.
Yeah.
So how do you think those different backgrounds, like you growing up or you getting to this point, do you think those backgrounds helped you be hospitable or helped you be driven, motivated, all of that stuff?
Yeah. So hospitable, like hospitable host, like the book.
And I'm just
So
throwing that word out there. I don't know.
that was a softball. So actually a big part of my chapter, I talk about that. I talk about my upbringing and how I had to I had to be very adaptable to. I had this kind of weird thing in the Persian community. Everybody loves being Persian. Like they're so proud. Like they love, I'm Persian. Are you Persian? That's always the first question is, are you Persian? And I think within the community, I never felt like I was fully part of the community because I wasn't like fully Persian. Then on the Colombian side, I was like Colombian, but not really because I was like the white boy. And then you grow up and you want to assimilate and you grow up with MTV culture and you want to have a great time. And so I almost had to be like a chameleon. And so I was always embraced in different communities, but never felt like I was a part of the community. And so I always adapted and it allowed me really to find common themes just across different cultures, which is humor, have a good time, drink. And I think that's part of being also like a host. Like when you're hosting somebody, I used to host a lot of parties and it was whether I was at home at my home, in college, post college, That's one of the things I was known for. And you want to make sure people feel welcome, that they feel part of the community, and that they're having a good time. And I think food and some of those things just brings people together. And so that's why all those have always been like a priority for me. It's like learning about everybody as much as I can, and then finding a way to connect with people. And I think that's important. I think that's a way for you to really dig a little bit deeper and even learn about yourself is through others as well.
So, with your real estate background, tell me a little bit. I know I've known you from your first one until now. So, tell me about, you don't see the struggles, right? You don't see, okay, there's different steps to getting to the next level that you're at. And so sometimes that step is big and you're like, I don't know how to take this next step. For example, you have partners now and you're like, I don't know if I'm going to control this or if they're going to take this on. How did you handle that?
Yeah. So I'm going to go back just a little bit from my early 20s. I'm going to share a couple of my failures. So first, I live in Southern California. I lived at home, and my goal was really to buy something as quick as possible after I graduated college. But in my eyes, my mindset was everything's too expensive out here. So I decided, hey, I'm just going to go buy a place in Vegas because it's the next state over. It's drivable. I decided to buy in 2005 at the peak of the market. And so then the crash happens. And so what's ironic is I purchased a property. Rents at the time, I think my mortgage was like $1,000. I think originally, rents were like around $1,200 for the 2-bed that I had. And as the economy got worse, then the tenants move out, then it becomes 1,000. Then the tenants move out, then becomes 800. Then tenants move out, becomes 600. And this was at the bottom of the market. And eventually, I'm in a position where I'm paying out of pocket every month. And I didn't know anything about underwriting. I didn't know anything about any of that stuff other than I just want to buy some real estate because I hear that's what people do. And I eventually, as soon as I bought my primary residence in 2010, which is the same where I'm at today, I let go of that property. I think I bought it for 210 and I think it was worth like 65K at the bottom of the market. And then I eventually rebuilt my credit. And then fast forward, I'm like ready to invest in real estate again. This is 2018. I buy a long-term rental with a partner and same thing. There's a long distance, out of state. It's what we didn't realize, it's in a flood zone. And the insurance of the flood zone basically ate up all the cash flow that we underwritten for. And then we also thought it was in a great zip code, but of course we're not familiar with the parts of the zip code, which was actually in a really bad area. So there was like high crime. Anyways, and we listed it for sale. And we did the BRRRR and we listed for sale. It sat on the market for a year. Eventually, we just decided, hey, we're going to just sell it at a loss because we're over it. And then we attempted to do apartment syndication right before COVID happened, thinking, oh, yeah, I'm going to go and try this apartment syndication thing. I hear it's like you just buy this apartment and you make all this money and we join a coaching program. And but all these lessons have basically led me into short-term rentals. So then pivoted into short-term rentals. And fast forward a couple of years, there's just all these learning lessons you learn along the way. And I think the big takeaway is just keep learning, keep making adjustments, and don't quit. Don't be afraid, and just stay consistent. So yeah, we ended up buying, I don't know, almost like one a month for the past 2 years, like 2 years for a while. Like we stopped purchasing, I guess this year, the way the market is and everything. But in general, that's how I started. But I don't know if I answered your question.
So, like with you buying one a month, how do you have time to catch up and be like, okay, who's going to manage? How did you come up with a system of like, all right, I know how your business model works.
Yeah, for sure.
But who's going to manage it?
Sure.
Who's going to be there? Who's going to take over if you're sick or something? Or all that.
Oh, for sure. I think that's the beauty of like when you start off, you wear every hat. One day you're the accountant, one day you're the operator, one day you're communications. But I think we've had designated roles. So in theory, you have the vision of, okay, so this is what we want to do. So the idea was we had Tony, he's a systems guy. He's like the visionary systems guy. He's great at setting up, creating the business, setting up all the processes in place. That's his strength. Sarah was operations. So in theory, she was doing all the operations, communications for the most part. while I was still doing the W-2. I did all the back end kind of loose things, all the things that nobody wanted to do.
Emailing
When I
me.
first,
Yeah.
yeah, like when I
Talking
first
with Brian.
started, right? Yeah, it's like it was that was what I was doing. All the things, all the administrative tasks.
Yeah.
And then eventually we just transitioned different roles. So then it was like operations. Then it became like an investor relations, which is basically I was sourcing deals and then I was finding investors and then connecting the deals with investors. So I think that was basically I had a Calendly set up. And as soon as I quit my job, my calendar was full every day. I was talking to investors every single day. And it was basically, okay, like trying to build a relationship with investors that made sense and made sure that that we had aligned goals. And then like understanding, okay, this is their criteria, this is what they're looking for. And then figuring out, okay, I know of this market, I know of this sort of return that I can get for this sort of asset, and just connecting the dots. I became like the people connector with like deals. And then Sarah was doing, and then I was helping with also like launching. We were all wearing a lot of different hats throughout, but like the designated roles was Sarah operations. I was more like sourcing acquisitions and investors. And then Tony set up all the systems. And then we all just always had a meeting and we just consistently talked about how can we make the business better with KPIs? How can we on the performance side as well as on the acquisition side? And it was just like all those things. And I just ended up building a relationship with a builder and we just sourced a lot of tiny homes off market from the builder directly. But eventually, I think like half of the homes were straight from this builder where I already knew what was coming in and I already knew what those sort of properties generated. And that's how we were able to establish ourselves in Joshua Tree. And of course, we got in right before the boom and a lot of people came in after. And, but yeah, it's what we did. But it's one day you're marketing because you're posting on social. You're just learning as you go along. Like you're just figuring it out.
So what I'm hearing from it sounds like all of y'all it takes teamwork, right? Teamwork to make the dream work. And all of y'all, knowing all of you guys, all of you are really passionate about it. So I think that's really key to creating that partnership and continuing it to make it succeed.
Yeah, 100%. Like I think that's like the relationship piece and the communication piece. I think that's super important. And just ensuring that your egos are checked out the door because sometimes you're going to have to do things you don't want to do. Sometimes you're going to have to do things for the sake of the better good of the business. And I've been trying to work on that because originally it's always been like, hey, Tony, Sarah at the forefront, they're the face. And then slowly over time, I was like, hey, I'm going to start trying to build my brand. And that's how things have continued to evolve is just learning. And I think there's just so many lessons to be learned from just working with others. There's never a perfect relationship. But I think it's thinking about what it is, understanding what you do well, and can you then find somebody that complements your skill set and make something happen. Yeah. Create this vision and the consistency of making something happen.
Let me ask you this because we have a very similar trajectory, right?
Yep.
And a lot of things, but in regards to the short-term rentals and everything, we got started roughly around the same time. We both scaled pretty quickly. You obviously scaled a lot more than I have. In terms of the acquisitions, like you mentioned, this year things have slowed down because of market conditions and things like that. One thing that I'm struggling with, frankly, is it's not that so much that the work or the business has slowed, because I think maybe it's just me. I've filled it in with different things, but the acquisition part has slowed and it feels strange, like after moving so quickly. So I just want to get your input if it's similar with you or what you guys feel.
Yeah. So I think for me, I talk to a lot of operators who are in a very similar position where it's like the phase of their business of like stabilization or optimization or improving processes, and acquisition is like on hold or slow down. And like I recently purchased a property independent of Tony and Sarah just on my own. I'm working on launching it in the coming months. In JT, it takes 3 months to get a permit. So I'm like not in a rush per se, but I'm just working on it. But like you said, you don't want to jump into investments. It's just a weird time right now. And what I did to hedge against that was, okay, conservative underwriting, buying below market prices, projecting a conservative forecast with the idea of outperforming that, and creating something that's different. Everybody says, "Hey, unique experience," that's thrown out so loosely, and it's everybody's unique experience is the same. Not that you're so unique, but it's everybody has the same one. Yeah, everybody has a mural idea or whatever. And
Yeah.
but shout out to you, Kale, by the way, what you did with your property that you're launching, awesome, by the way. But yeah, I think that's a struggle, and I think right now it's like figuring out where to pivot, and I don't know the answer, and it's like right now I'm gonna work. For me personally, it's pivoting, like knowing what is my strengths and where do I want to work on, and it's going on the sales side. So I applied I did the realtor thing, and I just passed my test. So I'm going to test the waters on that and be the investor friendly agent and just really just concentrate on that. I don't want to do residential. I don't want to show houses. I just want to be like Tyler and just send an email and then get a million people that want to buy. Tyler Kuhn, is that? Yeah. So I want to be that guy. Yeah. But one day, yeah, that's the goal. So I think that's what I'm working on in the meantime while I'm trying to figure out where to pivot. And you see some people pivoting, hey, I'm doing this boutique hotel or I'm doing multifamily. I think I still want to stick with short-term rentals. I think that's really still my passion. And I think I'm here to stay. So I think a lot of people are pivoting out, or they're doing the MTRs or they're now the motel guy. Or I'm still here as a short-term rental guy. I want to still be the expert because I think we still haven't perfected the craft. I think there's so many people. The short-term rental game is still very young. And although people think it's saturated or there's too many people in there, it's still a very young niche. And I still want to continue to perfect it and get better at it.
Right. I think that's a good outlook. Yeah. Yeah. So I think like we've been talking about with all these different areas, it's not only phases of life, but phases of business, right? And different transitions, different chapters. And I think, again, we're relatively newer into the entrepreneurship world. And I think we're still learning as we go as to how this is all going to shake out and how we're going to be able to balance our lives, how our business is going to evolve and all these things. Wes, I want to get your input a little bit because out of all of us, you're the most seasoned in terms of the entrepreneurship life. I know we talked previously and you had similar struggles in the beginning with transitioning into owning a business and that type of thing. But what have been some of the biggest things maybe that you've done or you've seen that's helped you get a better balanced life or a more consistent or stable business instead of growth spurt, then slow and then growth spurt and that type of thing?
Okay, so I'm probably going to be unconventional in all this. And so first of all, one of the things that I've done probably the past 6 years is I have just totally just given over the entire business to God. And what I mean by that is I'm like, you know what, Lord, this is what success is for me. I want time with my family. I want freedom to travel. I don't want to be answering phone calls all day, every day long. I don't care how much money I make. As long as I can put my kids in school and pay the mortgage and save a little bit of money, that's success for me. Obviously, I like to grow the business. I like to acquire more and things like that. But that's my goal. And Lord, I'm just going to put it in your hands. And I need your inspiration of what to do. And no joke, the past 6 years have been we've seen the most growth we've ever seen. And I don't even spend that much time thinking about it. I work a lot, but like, I'll be like, hey, Lord, I can't figure out how to get past this problem. How do I get more customers? Or what do I do with this pricing model or whatever? And then I'll just let it go. I'll just pray and let it go. And then maybe the same day, sometimes weeks later, an idea pops in my head and I'm like, oh, you know what? That actually might solve that problem I had 2 weeks ago. So I'll write it down. And so basically there's this time delay where I get answers to the prayers I'm asking for, sometimes weeks after I've asked. So I'm always getting something and they don't always work. I've learned a lot from failure. And in fact, sometimes I'm a very hard-headed person. So for me, sometimes I don't learn a lesson until I fail in it. And so, guys, I love you. Go on. There you go. I'll be out in a minute. So for me, like right now, for example, right now I'm struggling a lot with staff. So we have around 55 employees right now, and we're in our busy season. And so there's a lot of discontentment with some of the older staff who have been around when it was slow. And so they're like, why is it so busy? And I'm not being paid anymore. And I'm like, that's your job. Like, your job is not based on the slow season. Your job is based on the demand. And so my management team back in North Carolina, they're a little stressed right now. And I was up there for a week. 2 weeks ago, I'm going up there again end of this month. And I haven't been up there for a year. Now I'm making 2 trips in a month. And so it's a little stressful, but I'm leaving in God's hands. I'm like, Lord, I'm like, you know what's important to me. I need your help. I need the staff to calm down. I need inspiration on what's going on. And he's been answering me. So I went up there like 2 weeks ago, and I was like overwhelmed with the chaos, with the employee morale and the management team and all that stuff. And mind you, the business is slammed. So there's not even room to do anything different at the time because there's just so much happening. And I went back to the hotel room and like, I was depressed. I was like, Lord, this is way beyond me. I was like, I'm just completely lost. I need you. And man, as soon as I said that, I was like, I can't do this. I can't. Then like God started putting in my head, like little things I could try. Went back the next day, started putting it into place, got a lot of pushback from the team, but they've been doing it now for 2 weeks. And today I got a call from the manager saying that, man, like it's so much smoother now. There's still a lot of chaos, right? The employees still are going through their whatever, but it's so much smoother now. And I'm like, wow, Lord, I put in place a better way to do something when I haven't done it in like 3.5 years. Cause I'm not there. Like I've been gone now for 2 years from the business physically. I'm actually out of state. But the whole year that I was still in the state was during COVID. I didn't go into work at all. Like I just worked from home. And so I haven't actually done this stuff, the actual day-to-day activities for over 3 years. And then I broke down in the hotel room and just said, Lord, I need your help. And he gave me inspiration. So all that to say, I'm unconventional, but what I do is, and by the way, every morning I start out, I read the Bible every morning. Like there's no negotiation. I sit down and I read the Bible for 45 minutes to an hour. And I don't just read it. Like I'll read it and like I'll study it and I'll pull up concordances and I'll cross-reference. I'll just whatever rabbit trail I'm on. And I'm like, Lord, that's my priority. I want to understand your word. That's what I want. Everything else can just happen. And every day I say a prayer, Lord, help me appreciate the prosperity you've given me, but also help me be able to let it go if need be. If I lose everything tomorrow, help me be like Job and say, Lord, you give and you take away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. And I feel like that is helping me manage the stress that I'm going through right now with the summer. It's helping me manage the staff. It's helping me be a good steward to the best of my ability with whatever he's given me resource wise. And it's helping me be patient with the next step. Because like you, Cale, I'm a little anxious about growing the business. I tried acquiring that grooming shop and then it fell through. I think it was last week. The lady backed out. And then my first reaction was, Lord, I spent several $1,000s on due diligence with attorney's fees and CPA fees. She's backing out. What am I going to do? What's the next step? What's the next step? And I got peace saying, okay, let it go. Like you focus on what's important to you. Let the other things fall into place if they do, and they may not. I may lose everything tomorrow, but I got to be okay with that. And I'm not saying I am. I have panic attacks, but I think that for me, that's been what's helped me be successful in my mind is what are my priorities and let God figure out the rest. So there's my unconventional answer to that question.
No, I think that's great. And obviously, a lot of that comes from your experiences and going through the challenging phases and the startup and learning and seeing what works and what doesn't work. And ultimately getting to the point where you can start letting things go and giving them up to God and being at peace with that, which I think is where we all want to be. And I can't say that I'm at that same level with that. I certainly am trying to do that more and more. Like just this week, along the same theme, I've been wanting to acquire something. And one of my goals for this quarter has been to acquire another property. And so I'm doing looking at tons of deals, underwriting things every single day, all this stuff. And so I shot out an offer earlier this week on something. We went back and forth with a couple counters, but yesterday they came back with another counter and there's still a bridge to gap. And it's clear that it's not going to be bridged. And I'm being strict on my criteria. I'm not going to, even though it's tempting almost to say, gosh, it's right there. At the same time, I did the same thing. I've been praying the whole time of, you know what, if this isn't going to work out, it's not going to work out, and show me what's going to happen next. And so that is giving me a little bit of peace in losing that deal. There was another one that came along like right after that. And when I was about to submit an offer, I get a text back from the realtor saying it just went under. And so I was like, gosh, but learning to have that patience and let that go.
The thing is, I agree. And the thing is that you don't want a deal that's outside of God's will for your life. Right? Exactly. All it's going to do is bring a headache. It may be successful financially, but it could ruin you in so many ways. And like you say, Kiel, and I'm inspired by you too, because you have a great mentality for this. Lord, close the door if it's not meant for me. Like, I don't want it. And sometimes, in my experience, sometimes God, well, at least with me, will test me in that by putting something that's just out of reach. And like you said, Kiel, are you going to compromise your convictions for that? Are you going to compromise for it? Because if you do, then you may be going outside God's will. So like you having your criteria up front in stone, I think that's smart, because it's like, Lord, this is what I feel at peace about. This is what I need for this deal to go through. And don't break your own rules to get it if you're trying to submit it to God. You know what I'm saying? And if God wants to change your criteria, he can give you that confirmation. But if he's giving you conviction, don't change. This is what's safe for you and your family. I would say don't go against it.
I want the listeners to understand, if you do put in an offer on a property and your first offer doesn't get accepted and they're like, they counter back, then that's not saying, oh, they didn't accept my original offer. That doesn't mean that it's a bad deal and that you should walk away. You have to understand the difference between, there's going to be things that you have to compromise on because you're not always going to get 100% of what you want, versus things that you continuously see roadblocks being put up. That's that sign. You can't overcome what's supposed to be. And so you can try. And there's always like these, and I'm the prime example because I've done it before. Like, there's so many roadblocks that come up, and I'm a big believer too, Wes, that God showed me the way, but I really want this. But if you don't want it, I really want this. And I'm going to keep pushing to get it while I'm praying to you, even though if I'm just honest, like, just stop, because it's not going to work out. And then sometimes I will get what I want, but then in the end, it's complicated and it wasn't worth it in the first place. And then I let it go, or whatever it is. And I could have saved myself that, if you can just be really honest with yourself in business. Like I said in our last podcast, I think if the numbers work, they work. Just tying it back to real estate. If they work, don't put your emotions into it. Know what's right for you. Pray about it if that's what you feel that you're going to help you mentally. But you can't just pray about it and then be like, no, this is what I want. You have to put all of it together and have that business faith mindset to be truly successful, I think.
And real quick comment, I think, Kiel, just to clarify, I absolutely agree that negotiating is good and having your offers is good. I'm saying, like, you have your ratios already predetermined. I'm not going to go beyond this amount. And I think that's the conviction that you have to go to God and say, Lord, what is healthy for my portfolio or my vision or my goals? Once you get peace on that with prayer, due diligence, and it's not like you expect God to just audibly tell you those things. You can check your spirit. Once you get that in conviction, yes, negotiate, make your offers, whatever. Just don't go beyond whatever that predetermined amount is.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's crucial. Yeah, I'm sure. Same with you, Omid. I'm sure you guys have very strict criteria of what you're going to go with and what you're not going to go with on a deal.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And it's interesting because even your negotiating power, it's very market specific and it's very deal specific. And you have your buy box, but then you have to also consider where you are in the negotiating power spectrum, because as long as you can still hit your buy box, you're good to go.
Yeah. So just to wrap all this up, because I think this is really good. I think all of this ties in very well together. And at the end of the day, I think it boils down to, frankly, getting out of our own way, whether it's in the family sphere or the business sphere, being able to get out of our own way. And like you were talking about, Wes, being able to let it go. I think that's when you ultimately are able to get that better balance and a more stable, whether it's family life or business life or whatever. But it is a challenge getting there, right? It's a real struggle. And so I'm glad that you came on and shared some of that stuff with us, Omid, because it's very important, I feel, for people to understand what's on the other side, because I'm sure it was similar with you, but I know for me, I didn't really know what to expect in becoming an entrepreneur and leaving the W-2 or the corporate world. And it is very different. It does have its own set of challenges, and being able to understand a little bit of what that may entail as you're pursuing that gives some clarity to maybe, do you want to pursue that or do you not? Or what can I expect at least and be better prepared when I get there? So I appreciate your candor, letting us know that you're not perfect, even though it seems like you are on yes. But no, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing some of the behind the scenes with us. I think everyone's going to appreciate that.
Also, I do
Oh,
want
yeah.
to feel like the next place that we are all going to be together, Wes, I'm not sure, but Kale, Omid, and myself is the STR Growth Summit in
Austin.
September in Austin.
Yeah, September. Yeah.
And that'll be cool because, one, you get to hear all those stories combined if anybody out there wants to go. And two, there may or may not be a dance off. I don't know yet. I don't know.
There you go. Yeah.
Or Brenna might just deadlift you. We'll see.
Yeah.
I know, right? Yeah. She has a 185 PR. Is that 185 PR or 200
Yeah.
PR?
So far, yeah. We'll see how it
There you
goes.
go.
So
There you go. We're gonna do a squatting competition here.
Oh, I got. Oh, yeah. I'd
Pick
like
up
to do that.
Kale. Pick up Kale. There you go. Because you're 180. You're about 185.
there we go. Yeah, there we go. Perfect.
There you go.
Oh man. Yeah. Just to close it off then, the thing we like to end off with is, do you have 3 actionable or practical tips? Whoop.
Sorry. I so will.
Do you have
Anywho,
3 actionable or practical tips that you could leave our audience with based on what we've discussed today?
I think when you start any sort of journey, just understand your threshold for discomfort, because I think it's easy to get into a comparison game with yourself and other people, or you're like, oh, I'm better than this person. I can do what they're doing and then some. Or maybe it's, hey, they're doing these things and they've achieved this amount of wealth or this sort of a success. And, but you need to have the right habits in place. So if you have a poor man's level of habits in whatever you do now, like you jumping into anything else is not necessarily going to translate into success just because you think you're better than somebody else, or you think because somebody else is doing it, you can do it. So just make sure you have the right habits in place, because if you have the habits in place, things will fall into place. You'll figure out a way. And so I would say assess your threshold of pain or your threshold for discomfort. And then from there, find a mentor. Find a mentor that's going to help you go in the direction as for the goals that you want to achieve, because you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Find somebody that's already doing it and have them show you the way and make whatever modifications that fit your situation and get started. So if you're going to do the entrepreneur route, go for it. Just make sure that you know what you're getting yourself into and that you have the right habits and work ethic in place.
Boom. Love it. Brenna, take it home.
yeah. What is your favorite pizza and where from and why?
Oh, okay. You know what? I should probably have a better answer for this.
Yes, you
Papa
should.
John's.
I'm trying to think. It's so from just a regular pizza, not regular, but just the standard brands. I love thin crust pizza. I love Domino's thin crust pizza. They have the little squares and it
Yeah,
just
like that.
pop them
yeah.
in. But I would say I like a boutique wood burning, like a Neapolitan style. There's not anyone specific, I guess, that's near me that I have, but I would say those. But and pepperoni.
When you're
Anything
in
pepperoni.
the Smoky Mountains again, whenever that's going to be, what is it called? It's my favorite pizza. It does it in little squares.
Yeah.
Bellacino's. So it looks like a
Oh,
hole in the wall, and like it's on Dolly Parton Parkway.
cool.
So if you're going up, like it's right before you get to the restaurants on the left, like the main strip restaurants and that Ford dealership. So Bellacino's on the left, coming
Check
in
it out.
from I-40.
Super cool.
There you go. Omid, where can people reach out to you? Where can they follow you?
Sure. So you can follow me on IG. So Omid the Rad Investor. So that's OMID the Rad Investor. I have a link tree in there. There's a bunch of different links, but you can find me on findyourfreedomrei.com. I'm launching a co-host company, Nomadic Co-host. So Nomadic and then cohost.com. But yeah, just send me a DM and maybe I'll respond.
Maybe.
Sometimes
Absolutely.
they slip, right? They go to all these different like folders and
Yeah, there's different folders now.
shoot. I should have answered this like months ago.
So there you go. Check out Omid, the Rad Investor. Listen to his podcast, Find Your Freedom. And thank you again, Omid. Appreciate you sharing with us. And we'll see you again.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Peace.